If you've been dealing with the annoying Steam Deck bug where all you see are color bars, don't worry, I've got the fix for you. One of my favorite racing games that just didn't work on the Steam Deck finally works, and I'm going to tell you all about it. And finally, if you're looking for a little bit of a performance bump, the Steam Deck's biggest competitor is at the price it always should have been. This video is sponsored by DoorDash. I'm sure you've heard of or even used DoorDash before, and today I'm here to tell you about their service Dash Pass. At its core, Dash Pass saves users money. Dash Pass is an exclusive membership that not only gets you $0 delivery fee, but also saves you money on service fees for eligible orders, and you get members only deals and discounts on top of all of that. And not only can you save with an annual membership, but it pays for itself on average in around 2 orders. You can get savings on restaurants, you can get savings on groceries, you can get savings on anything in between. Just look for the DoorDash logo. There's a risk-free 30-day trial for new members, and you can cancel or pause your membership at any time. No questions asked. Use my code DECK50 to give yourself a pass with Dash Pass. And again, $0 delivery and reduced service fees on eligible orders. Plus member-only exclusive deals and items. Get more from delivery for less with DoorDash. $0 delivery fees and reduced service fees on eligible orders. Sign up for Dash Pass today and get your first 30 days for free if you're a new member. Subject to change, terms apply. Huge shout out once again to DoorDash for sponsoring this video. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about the Steam Deck. This is the last video I have to get through this week. I just uploaded one on my horror news channel talking about the new Jason short. If you haven't heard, they did a commercial with Angry Orchard, which is the first time we've seen Jason Voorhees in 16 years, and it was decent. I also talked about Zach Cregger's Resident Evil movie, so that is linked in the description if you want to check it out. And if you want to keep up to date with all the Steam Deck news, subscribe and set your notifications to all here. So yeah, let's jump into the first news story here. So an old bug that I had with the Steam Deck back when it came out resurfaced, and that bug is that when you boot up games, the intro videos and any cutscenes that will play will be replaced with color bars, like on a retro TV, or you know, when someone makes a joke or a cutaway gag in a YouTube video, they show those color bars with the beep. That's a far in the past callback that I'm not even sure if most of the people on YouTube really understand outside of the memes that it's used in, but it's kind of annoying on the Steam Deck because if you're playing a story game or you want to get to the main menu and have everything look and feel as it should, it's annoying to see a bunch of color bars. So the game that got me to investigate how exactly to fix this was Killing Floor 3, because just like with CarX Street, right after I recommended Killing Floor 3 on the Steam Deck, it got an update that made it so the main menu, which has a really cool background video playing underneath the actual options, was color bars, which is super annoying. So I dug in and I figured out how to get rid of this. The weird thing is, if you just give the game a couple of days of time for other Steam Deck users to actually play it, the issue will resolve itself, because what it comes down to is that the videos that the game is using are not encoded in the right format for Proton to actually translate and display them in the game. So if you let it upload the shaders from other people playing the game on Steam Deck, it will then also upload the cutscenes and videos, encode them to the right format, and then download them to your Steam Deck with the shaders. So like if you ever see a shader update that's a little bit bigger than normal, it's probably because it's downloading videos. But that's not the best solution, right? Because most games come out right before the weekend and most people play games during the weekend. So I wanted to find a way to fix this that would be instant and just get you back in the game. And of course, as usual, it's Proton GE. So if you're new here, Proton GE is like a community made version of Proton that can use stuff that Valve can't. Because if Valve wants to put something from Windows within the official version of Proton, they have to figure out licensing, they have to get permission for a lot of stuff, and because of that, some things just slip through the cracks and they can't use it in regular Proton. But since the community is the one creating Proton GE, and GE stands for Glorious Egg Roll, they can use any DLL, any video encoder, anything they want. If you ever see these color bars, chances are if you just download and use Proton GE under compatibility, they'll be fixed in the game, because Proton GE can only use every video encoder out there, and there are only so many of them. So like chances are that they'll be covered. And thankfully, getting Proton GE set up is not hard at all. All you have to do is go to your desktop mode, go to the Discover Store, and type in the app Proton Up QT, download that, run it, and then you just click add version. I always do the latest version. I think it's on 10-2 or something like that, so it's up to date with the beta version of Proton. And once you do that, the color bar game will be fixed. But the cool thing is, using Proton GE actually does result in performance bumps in a lot of games. So I was having an issue with Forza Horizon 4 where 5 runs great, right? I use my trick, which is set the GPU to 1000 megahertz, and that makes it run at high settings, 45 FPS locked without any of the slowdown or stuttering. I was getting that slowdown and stuttering at medium settings in Forza Horizon 4 though, so I downloaded Proton GE's latest version, I switched it to that, it fixed every issue. So if you're still playing Forza Horizon 4, like you were able to get it before it got delisted, there's a fix to actually make it perform as well as Forza Horizon 5, despite it being an older and easier to run game. Proton GE also works better in some emulation, well not really emulation, basically like if you're playing those Need for Speed Abandonware games, like you got the PC version of Most Wanted 2005, that will work better with Proton GE. And also in Heroic Games Launcher, you can set a global version of Wine, which I guess is the bigger version of Proton, which also sets the Proton. So you can set Wine to always use Proton GE. I don't know why with games from other launchers like GOG or Epic Game Store, GE works better, but it does. Just use GE if you're ever running into any issues with videos or just general performance. It's worth a shot if you're just losing a few frames every few seconds. It can give you those back. But speaking of games that work better with Proton GE, let's talk about one that finally works on the Steam Deck almost 2 years after its release. That game is The Crew Motorfest. So I love this game. I've been playing it since it came out, and as far as Ubisoft goes, it might be their best live service game, or one of their best games in general, mainly because the studio that makes it gets a lot more freedom than the other ones for some reason. So they don't have to copy and paste a bunch of stuff between Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and The Crew. They could just kind of make their own open world racing game, and they've done a really good job. If you haven't heard of this game before, it's a little bit different than The Crew and The Crew 2, even though you can import all of your cars from The Crew 2, which is awesome, completely for free. It's called The Crew Motorfest because it takes place in a Forza Horizon style world where you're on 2 Hawaiian islands, Oahu and Maui, instead of the continental United States. So it's a little bit smaller of a map, but it is a really good looking map. And also they've improved the graphics a lot since the game came out. Like when they released the second map, which I'm pretty sure is Maui, they did a full graphics overhaul on both maps, and it looks better, but it also runs better. So in the latest update for Proton Experimental, they finally added in support for this game that fixes it. And I went to play it. I wasn't expecting much because it did work for a couple of days when the game came out, and you could not get 30 FPS even at the lowest settings. It turns out with those graphics upgrades, it performs really well. So I'm able to get a locked 30 FPS with very little stuttering. Like when you go into the menus, it might slow down a little bit, but when you're actually driving around the map, there's no stuttering. At medium settings with FSR set to balanced at 800p. So like really my base settings for most modern games work just fine with The Crew Motorfest. The one weird quirk about this game though is how its campaign works. So I don't love the way Forza Horizon has gotten, where it just throws cars and money at you relentlessly. There's zero sense of progression, but this one is a step in the right direction while not totally getting there. It's all set up in a playlist, so it'll make a little cutscene filled story adventure all about Ferraris or like American muscle cars, and they'll change the map for every race and it looks cool. The Japanese Neon Knights one is awesome, but you can't use your own cars in those playlists the first time. They give you preset cars to go through the playlist because it's heavily scripted, and then once you beat it, you can then go back and play it with any cars you want. But like if you're getting through the game, by the time you get to the end, you probably don't want to replay through all those different playlists. And then when you get to the end game, there's not really a ton to do in terms of PvP. They have a thing called the Summit, which is a bunch of weekly challenges, and then there's a grand race, which is 24 PvP racers, and it just devolves into chaos immediately. They have gotten better with the end game since the game came out, and they do update this game frequently, so I'd assume that they'll give players what they want, and the series isn't going away thanks to all this Ubisoft drama that's going on. The Crew 3 was actually just greenlit by Ubisoft, so that one will probably go back to being a big United States scale map, or maybe a different country. The reason I like this game so much though is because the people who made it clearly love cars. Like the playlists, even if they have that weird quirk where you can't use your own cars, like they have great cutscenes, they have great car info, you can learn trivia about cars that's actually nice and relevant and not just what you pull from Wikipedia. The music is so much better than Forza Horizon 5. I don't know what happened after Forza Horizon 4, but the soundtracks in Horizon were second to none up until 4. And then with 5, they totally just whiffed it, not only with the soundtrack, but also with the car sounds themselves. I could not tell you what happened there, but just like the main menu music when you boot up Motorfest, it's just got a great vibe to it, and I genuinely like this game a lot. The one big drawback to playing it on a device like the Steam Deck is that right now it's online only, just like the Crew 2 and just like the Crew 1. The Crew 1 got delisted, which sucks because they had to take it offline, but because of the backlash, they did announce that they are bringing an offline mode to the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest. So if you want to try it out and see how it works, you can do that with the peace of mind and insurance that it will be fixed at some point. Just right now, it's an online only game. But another game I recommended recently CarX Street is online only, and if you want to think about a game that does not need to be online only, it is definitely CarX Street. I wouldn't buy the Crew Motorfest for full price because it's gone on sale for like $8 and the season 2 expansion comes with it that gives you cop cars and everything like that, so just wait for a sale or look at a key reseller or something like that. But if you're looking for a cool open world racer because you've done everything in Forza Horizon 4 and 5, Need for Speed Heat, and Need for Speed Unbound, this one is just as good, if not a little bit better in some ways than all of those. Can't recommend checking it out enough. And finally, sticking with the theme of performance on handhelds, let's talk about how one of the Steam Deck competitors is the correct price for the first time ever. We're talking about the Legion Go S, and you have to get a little bit tricky with it, which is why this justifies its own news story. So there are actually 4 versions of the Legion Go S. There's 2 white ones that run Windows. One has the Z2 Go and one has the Z1 Extreme. Same goes for the SteamOS version. They're purple. One has the Z2 Go, one has the Z1 Extreme, and all of them are horribly overpriced. But right now, one of the Windows ones, which is usually $700, which is crazy, is all the way down to $499. It's the Z2 Go version, and the Z2 Go does get a little bit of a performance bump over the Steam Deck's APU, which makes sense because even though it's a lower spec chip, it's 3 years newer than the Steam Deck's chip. But the real killer is it has 32 gigabytes of RAM. In 2025, any handheld or any PC really should have 32 gigabytes of RAM just because the OSs have become so bloated. But when you take this white Legion Go S, install SteamOS on it, you can actually use much more of that RAM than you could if you were on Windows, which is awesome. I can't tell you the exact performance numbers of the Z2 Go version because I have the Z1 Extreme version, but at 1200p, it's a no-go. Like, you can get maybe 25 to 30 FPS in most modern games, but if you set the resolution to 800p and then upscale it, because thankfully it's a 16:10 screen, you'll be able to get much better performance than the Steam Deck on at least the Z1 Extreme version, and I'd imagine on the Z2 Go version, you might get 5 or 6 FPS better, but that can mean the difference between a locked 30 and 30 FPS with stuttering and some dips. For $500, I don't think it's worth upgrading from the Steam Deck OLED, but if you're still kicking around with the 64 gigabyte regular Steam Deck, for that price, it's kind of like renting it until the Steam Deck 2 comes out, because I'm sure you could just sell it later. And like, it depends what games you're playing. I don't really use the SteamOS version of the Legion Go S all that much. I like the bigger screen for sure, and I like the cool purple, but the trackpad is just functionally useless to the point where it shouldn't be there. And the ergonomics, like on the actual grips, feel great, but the trigger placement is bizarre. It's actually kind of difficult for me to fully pull the triggers on this thing. Even if the bumpers are in the right spot, they whiffed it on one of the most important buttons, which is the triggers. Just because this thing natively runs SteamOS, I see a lot of people asking about it in the comments, which is the only reason I'm covering it. I would really like to see maybe a handheld come out with these Asus Strix Halo chips. I don't know much about them, but the performance numbers I've seen in articles are kind of crazy. I think the battery life kind of suffers for it, but if we're getting to that point, I can't imagine the Steam Deck 2 is far off. So if you're kicking around with the oldest Steam Deck, your launch unit's looking a little worse for wear, maybe instead of buying a Steam Deck OLED, you could get an open box version of the Legion Go S, use SteamOS on it, and then when the Steam Deck 2 comes out, you could upgrade for the full price to the better model. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.